Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Power and Science of Money podcast, brought to you by your boy King Freeze. Now, last week I told you guys I'm going to talk to you about the power of tax deferred and the power of IRAs and things like that, how to minimize your tax liabilities, thereby and also by also growing your income, because what they always say is a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. And why? Why is that true? Because the money that you have today will be worth less the longer that you hold it. So if you have $10 a day and you never try to grow it, remember what I said about outpacing inflation. If you hold that $10 a day, in about 10 more years, you're not going to be able to buy as much as you were able to today. The power of your money has decreased. So that's why you need to also be growing with the inflation. So a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow, unless you are making sure that you are staying ahead of the game. That's what we're going to be doing, right? So check this out. So there's power of, pre-taxing and tax deferred. So what do I do for my pre-tax? I have a 401k. You're winning automatically off the jump with a 401k because whatever you put in, your employer is going to match up to a certain percentage. Maybe it might be 4, 5, 6, 7. Every employee has a different number, but you winning right off the jump. You already getting 100% return on the investment right there. So that's why that's a good one. So you put in $10, they put in 10. Now you got 20. You just already doubled your money in seconds. So that's why that is good. And also the good part of that is that this happens before it hits your paycheck. So it's considered pre-tax or tax deferred, meaning that the government is not going to try to tax that until you withdraw it at a later date. But for the time being, it has the benefit of lowering your income while also investing into your future, outpacing the inflation or helping outpace the inflation. On the opposite end of that is post-tax investments such as an IRA. Now, why is it? What's the difference between post-tax and pre-tax? Remember, pre-tax, I told you, the government never even got a chance to tax it at all. So it's pre-tax. So they're like, all right, you can hold that, but we're going to come and get it later. But with the post-tax, they've already taxed it. So you've been paid. You already paid taxes on that. And now they cannot tax it again because that's double taxation, which the government normally doesn't do, or often they don't do. So since they already taxed that money, they're not going to tax you again. So that's why IRAs are good. You can invest up to $6,000 a year into IRAs, which is really good. If you have a spouse, she can put another $6,000. So that's $12,000 a year that y'all invested into IRAs. Now, the way that it works, like I said, you get paid, you open the IRA, you put the money into the IRA, the interest grows. Now, the added benefit of this is that as long as you hold that investment or you hold that account until you retire, when you withdraw on it in the future, you don't have to pay any tax even on the interest gained. That's good because you have to pay no capital gains tax on that. And that's awesome. Now, how do you make these two things work together in tandem to have that superpower? Now, you've increased your money, right? Because you got your money doubling on the TSP off the jump, and you got some good investments, so you growing every year. And then on the other end, you got your IRA also working tax free pretty much until you withdraw it in the future. So when you finally retire and you're like, all right, I'm going to start pulling money on these accounts in order to live my life or live my best life. This is how they two come together to make a perfect ideal world. I touched on it last week. If I pulled all my money from my 401k, remember, which is only tax deferred, if I pull all my money from my 401k, then the government's going to tax me for whatever tax bracket I fall into, my marginal and average tax rate. Whatever I fall into, that's what they're going to tax. Now, I want to lower that liability. I want them to have lower taxable income. I want to have lower taxable income. So I'm going to pull out only half of what I need from my my 401k, right? And then I'm going to pull the other half from my Roth IRA, which has no tax liability. So now I have the same amount of money as before. If I pulled 40,000 out of my TSP, or if I pulled 20 out of my TSP and 20 out of my IRA, it's the same. But the only thing that's different is now what my taxable income is drastically lower. Because remember, like I said, you pull in the TSP, 40,000, that entire 40,000 is taxable income. Now, if I pull out 20 from my IRA and 20 from my 401k, only 20,000 of that is taxable income. And it also lowers your marginal and average tax rate, which means that you have less tax liability. So not only did you grow money over time, when you finally decide to withdraw it, you have a lower tax liability. That is the power of putting those two things together. And that gives you even more power. Because remember, this show was about power and science of money. And that's how it's working for you. You're getting more power. And the science of it is the mathematical part, which is compounding interest. Because remember, over the next 20, 40, 70, whatever years that you're going to be planning for your retirement, you're constantly investing into your TSP, your Roth IRA, your TSP, your Roth IRA. You're doing it over and over. You're compounding, and it's also earning interest because you're making sure that you're putting your stuff into mutual funds or mutual funds that grow over time, that have an awesome record, and they outpace the index of the United States stock market. So now you're earning all this money, interest, and on top of that, you're throwing more money on top of it. And that is awesome because also, while you're putting this pre-tax to the side, what is that also doing? It's lowering your take-home pay. And what does that do? Also, again, lowering your tax liability as far as your marginal and average tax rate. So now you get taxed less. So you have more money to do the things that you want to do, which will be putting money into your IRA, right? And that comes with tax benefits as well, because when you turning your taxes at the end of the year, they ask you, hey, have you invested into the IRA system? And you're going to say, yeah. And then they give you tax credits for that as well. So it works perfectly. You're saving money all along the road to retirement. So retirement or whatever it is you want to do, So that's why it's awesome. And it's a beautiful system that if you maximize it, you'll be able to set yourself up in the future. I promise your future self will thank you. And if you don't believe me, you just think I'm talking trash, go research these things yourself. Or if you have a finance calculator, make sure that you put these numbers into a calculator and see how that compounding interest works over time. And here's the magic part to it. The younger that you start, the least you have to put in. Huh? Okay, let me say that one more time. The younger that you are, the least amount of money you have to put in. Why? Because time is money. Time value of money. The more years that you have, the more time that you have to build up to where you want to be. The time value of money. That's why they say time is money. And that's why I also say time is money and health is wealth. Why? Because if you're healthy, you live longer. You live longer, you have more time. You have more time, you can invest longer. If you can invest longer, you become more wealthier and richer. Time is money and health is wealth. These things could never be any more truer than anything that anyone could ever say to you. So that's why it's important for you to stay on top of your health and make sure that you start investing well ahead of time to make sure, my clock just stopped on me. You want to make sure that you invest well ahead of time to make sure that you giving yourself the ability to stack up more. So if you're 18 years old listening to this right now, anything as low as $200 a month over time, compounded and gaining interest, and you do that for 30, 40, 50 years, you have the potential to be a millionaire by the time you retire. And that's money going to continue growing, and you're going to be doing other things on top of that as well, because you're going to be, at first you may be able to only afford $200 a month, but as you grow up, you get better jobs, you understand the finance game, so you understand where to put your money. And as your salary grows, your investment grows. That's where most people mess up. And that's what we're going to be talking about next week. And as an interlude, we'll talk about it a little bit here. So most people think that when they get more money, that all their problems are solved. But the issue is that most people don't learn how to save their money or what to do with the new money that they get. So instead of paying off debt or investing, they buy more stuff. So when they get a bigger job, they get in more debt because their wants and their needs grow, and they start buying more crap. Now they can afford the house that they want, the bigger car that they wanted, instead of putting that money to the side and investing it. So that's why it's very important to know that when your salary grows, your investments should also grow. That's very important. The more that you put into the system now will pay off huge in dividends in the future. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more in the detail next week. But if you want to know more about that, what you got to do, you got to check out your boy King Freeze right here on the Power and Science of Money podcast. This has been your boy King Freeze. This is the Power and Science of Money podcast. Until next time, peace.